So how do we create the perfect anabolic steroid? Well, in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be pulling information from Georgy Dinkov, which he's well known in the Repeat forum, and we'll dive deep into his hypothesis and way to formulate the perfect anabolic steroid or the perfect structural requirements to synthesize an anabolic steroid. Now, of course, many of you know about my stance on PEDs. I truly do think that some of these PEDs can be extremely dangerous to use if not dosed appropriately, and we don't have the appropriate ancillary compounds to protect the body against the organ damage that we see in many steroid cases. And as always, this is not medical advice. So please be sure to consult with your healthcare professional before making any changes to your lifestyle or routine. So how can we actually define an anabolic steroid? Well, anabolic steroids, also known more properly as anabolic androgenic steroids or AAS, are steroidal androgens that include natural androgens like testosterone, as well as synthetic androgens that are structurally related and have similar effects to testosterone. Now, they increase protein within cells, especially in skeletal muscles, and also have varying degrees of virilizing effects, including induction of the development and maintenance of masculine secondary sexual characteristics, such as the growth of facial and body hair. And the word anabolic, referring to anabolism, comes from the Greek anabol, that which is thrown up, mound, and androgens or AAS are one of the three types of sex hormone agonists, the others being estrogens like estradiol and progestins like progesterone. Now, anabolic androgenic steroids were synthesized in the 1930s and are now used therapeutically in medicine to stimulate muscle growth and appetite, induce male puberty, and treat chronic wasting conditions such as cancer and AIDS. Now, the American College of Sports Medicine acknowledges that anabolic androgenic steroids in the presence of adequate diet can contribute to increases in body weight, often as lean mass increases, and that the gains in muscular strength achieved through high intensity exercise and proper diet can be additionally increased by the use of these steroids in some individuals. So obviously this video was actually inspired by Georgy Dinkov Hadut. You can see that's his avatar, which he uses on the Repeat forum. By the way, guys, I've actually had Georgy Dinkov on my own podcast before. So if you haven't already downloaded or subscribed to my own podcast, the Boost Your Biology podcast, I have over 140 recorded episodes, and I think many of my YouTube audience and also Instagram audience has no idea that I even have a podcast because I'm just busy doing so many things. It's difficult to share so many things all at once. But definitely go check out my podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, all the podcasting platforms. It's called Boost Your Biology. So please go over there, subscribe, and would love if you could also leave a review as well. So let's continue talking about steroids. So this is quoting from the paper or the actual thread that Georgy Dinkov created. Although the anabolic activity of androgenic steroids has been recognized for a long time, the way in which these steroids act in muscle is ill understood. It is also known that glucocorticoids exert a catabolic and anti-catabolic effect on protein metabolism in skeletal muscle. So this comes back to the theory that many people are talking about why cortisol in excess is bad for the human body. Obviously, testosterone and cortisol have a somewhat inverse relationship. But glucocorticoids, such as cortisol, they exert catabolic properties. So cortisol can be a hormone that can actually degrade muscle tissue and affect and actually have a catabolic action in the human body. Now, androgen and glucocorticoid receptors have been demonstrated in this tissue since several steroids, including androgens, behave as glucocorticoid antagonists when binding to the glucocorticoid receptor in other tissues such as, or in other tissues, and such steroids could antagonize the catabolic action of endogenous glucocorticoids by preventing binding of the latter to their cytosolic receptors in muscle. So what we're seeing here is that androgens can behave as glucocorticoid antagonists, meaning that they can block and occupy the receptors that cortisol can bind to. So androgens can act as glucocorticoid receptor antagonists. So thus, muscle anabolism could result either from an agonist steroid binding to the androgen receptor or from an antagonist binding to the glucocorticoid receptor, or both. So this is giving us an insight into how we can build muscle, increase lean muscle tissue, different pathways to achieve this. Obviously, there are many other factors that are playing a role here, such as IGF-1, estrogen receptor beta, growth hormone. We see changes from mTOR signaling, AMK activation. So there are many other, and also follistatin and myostatin. There are many different pathways to actually achieve muscle growth. Now, interestingly, the potent anabolic steroid trenbolone, which many of you know about Tren Rage and all of the crazy videos you see online about Tren, the highly potent anabolic steroid trenbolone bound to the glucocorticoid receptor with an affinity almost as high as that of corticosterone, which is the endogenous glucocorticoid. So the three weakest anti-glucocorticoids, namely the androgens, methyltestosterone, nortestosterone, and testosterone, were also the steroids that bound the muscle glucocorticoid receptor with the lowest affinity. Now, these restrictions notwithstanding, these indices show how the high concentration of glucocorticoid receptor sites compensate for their relatively low affinity towards some of these steroids tested as compared to the androgen receptor. For instance, providing RU486 and R1881, both are anabolic agents, RU486 is expected, despite its 50-fold lower affinity to the androgen receptor, to be much more potent than R1881 if anabolism can result from anti-glucocorticoid activity as well as from androgenic action proper. Now, just for reference, what we would see here, the latter possibility is supported by the observation that the anabolic action of androgens, of androgens results from inhibition of protein catabolism rather than from stimulation of anabolism. Indeed, anti-glucocorticoid activity is expected to counteract protein catabolism, while androgenic activity would stimulate anabolism. So they've mentioned a medication called RU486, which is mifepristone, a synthetic steroid with potent anti-progesterone and anti-glucocorticoid activity that is currently used as a contraceptive agent. It is actually typically used in combination with misoprostol to bring about a medical abortion during pregnancy and manage miscarriage or manage early miscarriage. So we're seeing here an approved medication that is used to bring about medical abortion may be able to have a anabolic effect in the body. And we're seeing that through its anti-glucocorticoid properties, so blocking the receptors of which cortisol can occupy, or corticosterone. So this is really interesting how we're looking at repurposing medications to assist with other parameters of health and power, strength, and things like that. So this medication is for abortions. I mean, we're not going to bring about abortions. So this is a very delicate medication and also extremely expensive as well. But the whole point of this video is to give us an understanding into how do we create the perfect anabolic androgenic steroid? how do we create the best compound to facilitate muscle growth? What can we learn about the mechanism of action? We can learn that straight away. We can already tell that anti-glucocorticoid compounds may be able to reduce catabolism and increase muscle growth indirectly. If we were to combine the best of both worlds, one would need a steroid, which is a strong antagonist at the glucocorticoid receptor and a strong agonist at the androgen receptor. This presents a possible issue as the binding requirements for both receptors differ. Now, strong glucocorticoid receptor antagonists are usually pregnane derivatives, which also have at least one unsaturated double bond in the A ring of the steroid core. And on the other hand, strong androgen receptor agonists are usually fully saturated androstenedione steroids like DHT and androsterone, as well as synthetic derivatives like masterolone and oxandrolone, among many others. Thus, DHT is expected to be a relatively weak anabolic steroid in muscle and highly anabolic in androgen-rich tissues, which has been confirmed in practice countless times. In support of these assertions, progesterone is one of the most potent antagonists of the glucocorticoid receptor, as it satisfies all the requirements. Known anabolic steroids like testosterone and other AAS are also glucocorticoid receptor antagonists, relatively weak ones. In fact, as per the study, the only steroid stronger than progesterone is 1-dihydroprogesterone or delta-1 progesterone, i.e. another progestin, but the differences are minuscule. So in concentrations of 1 mg per liter up to 10 units per ml, progesterone is 7 to 11 times more potent as glucocorticoid antagonist compared to 17-alpha methyltestosterone. Now, these concentrations are achievable with dosages in the 5 milligram to 50 milligram range, which matches what Dr. Ray Peat has been confirming throughout the years for health and longevity. So what is this solution? Well, here theoretically we can see that some people may have noticed that testosterone is both an antagonist at the glucocorticoid receptor and an agonist at the androgen receptor. Now, unfortunately, as the studies show, testosterone is a weak glucocorticoid receptor antagonist, and this concentration is achievable to actually block that glucocorticoid receptor at 100 milligrams daily dosage. Now, however, 100 milligrams of testosterone daily is a very high dose and obviously supraphysiological, which will certainly lead to other side effects, including elevated estrogen levels, which is a natural process. Testosterone gets converted into estrogen. So what is this solution? Well, Georgy Dinkov is proposing that a combination of progesterone and DHT would satisfy the requirements for an optimal anabolic agent, since progesterone acts as a potent glucocorticoid receptor antagonist, and DHT, especially given its own antagonism to the glucocorticoid receptor and also estrogen. Yeah, many people don't actually know this, but DHT is highly anti-estrogenic. Now, however, given it's not available over the counter, it is probably not an option for most people. That leaves androsterone or androsterone and DHT as legal substitutes. And in fact, a combination of both may be even more powerful than either one alone. So the combination of DHEA and androsterone, which androsterone can also interact with DHT as well, the combination of androsterone and DHEA satisfies the requirements as legal substitutes to create an anabolic stack. Now, we know that DHEA should not be used in daily doses over 15 milligrams if we want estrogen to stay as it is. And androsterone is likely optimal in a ratio of 1:1 up to 1:4 in combination with DHEA. So that means about 5 to 15 milligrams of androsterone, and we're looking at about 40 milligrams of progesterone and 25 milligrams of DHEA. This is in confirmation with this particular recent human study that found that progesterone was just as anabolic as testosterone in postmenopausal women, while estrogen had no effect. So at least half of the theory seems confirmed by evidence in humans. And this study here was titled Testosterone and Progesterone, but not Estradiol, Stimulate Muscle Protein Synthesis in Postmenopausal Women. So if you enjoy learning more about anabolic stacks like these, do consider joining my new men's energy program, Limitless, where we talk about anabolic agents, we talk about PEDs, and supercharging energy and productivity through the ultimate chemistry hacks. That will be linked down below in the video description to join my men's energy program, Limitless. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.